Hello everyone, Glenn here from Alter Egos. Welcome back to Season 3 of the podcast. Alongside this episode, you should have a schedule for the entire month of September, as well as a little bit of the October schedule. The next few weeks have a large variety of content with a strong focus on the rise of Red Skull and deck building. As we start a new season, it's always important that we thank those that help to keep our show going. So a big thanks to our new patrons this month, James, Scott, and Alan. A huge thank you for you joining the Alter Egos team. And as always, a huge thank you to Matthew, Sean, Alex, Todd, Will, Scott, Dan, Josh, Chris, and Jackie. It means a lot that we can do this and provide the content we do for everyone. Our first guest for the new season is Steve Kimmel of Beat the Game, a YouTube channel focused on gameplay and deck building analysis. In his spare time, Steve also arranges games through his Facebook group, Marvel Champions Playtime. Thanks for your patience as we got everything organised for Season 3, and I hope you enjoy this first episode, all about deck building. Alright, and welcome back to Season 3 of Alter Egos. I'm your host Glenn, and with me for our first episode is a very special guest and content creator in the community, Steve Kimmel of Beat the Game. Steve, how's it going over there in Canada?
Oh, it's going good, man. It's getting chilly, so winter is coming. No pun intended.
Yeah, well, it's great that you could come on and talk about Marvel Champions. It's quite a busy time in the community. Do you just want to tell folks a little bit about who you are in the community and what sort of content that you're making at the moment?
Like I said, my name's Steve. My channel is called Beat the Game, and I started doing this channel. Actually, I didn't really start a channel in mind. When the pandemic hit, my nephew, who is 6 years old, his name's Alexander. He came over to our house, and then he saw the game, and he's like, "Oh, what's that, Uncle Steve? What's all these superheroes?" I'm like, "This is a game called Marvel Champions." I'm like, "Would you like to see a game?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah." So I asked him, like, "What's your favorite character?" He's like, "Oh, Black Panther." I'm like, "Ooh, okay." So I told him, "Man, there's 4 different aspects. Do you want him to be angry? Do you want him to be a protector? Do you want him to be a leader? Or do you want to be like the justice guy?" And then he says, "Oh, I want him to be a leadership." And then I asked him, like, "Okay, so do you want me to beat up on 1 bad guy or 4 bad guys or like as many bad guys as you can?" So I like, okay, we chose the Wrecking Crew. And then do you want me to make it easy, hard? Oh, I want it super hard. So, and then I did my first video, which was Black Panther leadership versus super expert, I think super expert heroic Wrecking Crew with Black Panther. And and it was pretty awesome. And I shared it to my family and everything. And everyone's like, "Oh, wow, it's a cool concept. You're very good at it." It was very entertaining. And yeah, it started from there. And then while the pandemic was hitting, I was just so bored. And I was playing this game so much. And I was watching a lot of other YouTubers. And I'm like, man, maybe I can do this. And I was looking at their strategies and how they approached the game, and I was like, "Oh man, I would have did that different." Or, "Oh man, if you would have played that could have gone a lot better for him." And so what I started thinking, like, "Oh, well, what if I start doing these challenges on the harder difficulty levels and see if I can actually beat the game using different characters with every aspect against the most difficult scenario combination possible?" And that's where technically it got started, and then it evolved from there.
Yeah, I think I first noticed your channel. You did a few sort of challenges into, I think I saw some Rhino Spider-Man action that was quite thematic. And then you also did a few sort of deck analyses that I saw on the YouTube channel. But it's been great to see, I guess, since 5 months ago, the content sort of evolve and get it to where it is now. How have you found the rise of Red Skull and sort of like what your content is doing now since you first started back sharing it with your family and so on?
Well, I think what Rise of Red Skull brought is what everyone in the community was looking for was just new stuff to play, because we have we just played out all of the Ultron, Green Goblin scenarios for so long that I think we felt like we knew everything, and like it kind of got to a point where like even though there's so much replayability with this game where you can just go crazy, seeing Red Skull was just a whole new experience. And to be honest, I've actually only played my one campaign with my solo expert Hawkeye, where I was experimenting Hawkeye on expert level with the different against the different campaigns, and then just kind of see how he would interact using the different aspects. And it was a blast. Seriously, Hawkeye is a beast in solo. I think multiplayer, I think it would be a different experience. And I played a couple of scenarios with some different people. And I've noticed that, wow, okay, so I like solo player because I feel like, okay, how do I think about going about the problem if I'm by myself? But what's great about the multiplayer aspect is once we start building off each other, we can play more to our strengths and instead of playing just to our weaknesses. I think I'm saying it right. Yeah. So I try to complement where I'm lacking when I deck build, and I think that pretty much sums it up. But Rise of Red Skull so far, man, I've loved it. When my first experience, when I got to Red Skull, I was like, oh my god, this is so awesome. And then so in a nutshell, that's what it is.
Yeah, and I guess it's been interesting because most of your YouTube content obviously is solo play, but I know that you're quite active in generating a lot of multiplayer sort of engagement. Do you want to talk a little bit about your Playtime initiative and sort of how you've been able to play some multiplayer during lockdown?
Oh, yeah. So I created Marvel Champions Playtime because I was tired of playing solo, but I kept seeing all these people like, oh, I just play solo. I don't have anybody to play with and everything like that. And then I thought to myself, well, all right, well, if I can record a video, maybe I can get other people to join the game. And then let's see if we can get that game going together. And then I did a first play with, I think, Brian De Castro. He's part of the community. And yeah, I think I had my first game with Brian and Andy, who's always also very active. And I think Mike O'Connell. I think that was my first game multiplayer. And it was such a blast because I got to play this game with people that love this game as much as I do. And that was just amazing. So yeah, we had there was a little bit of issues at the beginning, like, okay, so who's doing what? How are we controlling? But once we figured out those little details, Marvel Champions Playtime, it was just fun. And then I got so many good comments about it. And I know from Andy, from Mike, they were like, wow, this was such a different experience than playing forcing my friends to play this game that I love, and they're just like about. So, and the fact that we can bring the people from all over the place. So right now, I played with a guy from England, from the UK. I played with a bunch of people from all over Western Europe, all over the States. Some other people in Canada. And maybe one day we'll get to play together, Matthew, and I'll get Australia on my map.
Yeah, I definitely think that one of the huge benefits of this game is kind of being able to engage with people around the globe. And I think Playtime's like very successful at that. And the other thing I quite like about what you do is that because you're using the physical cards and not things like Tabletop Simulator and so on, you're really capturing, I guess, like both the essence of what it is to play this game, like in a board game store, like equivalent, but also done in a way that I feel like keeps everyone happy. Because I know that tabletop sim can kind of be a bit dicey for some people. So yeah, that's great to see what you guys are doing there.
Oh yeah, to elaborate on Playtime, like I said, it was not just spur of the moment, but I kept seeing people in the community. No, they talk about things. I'm like, I don't understand why I can't beat this character. And I'm like, oh, well, you know what? Why don't we play a game together and let's talk about, the decision making. Let's talk about how we approach the problem and how we tackle each in each scenario, and as it evolves. Because that's the thing I don't want to preach, but I don't believe in like just deck building. I don't believe in like one deck on Marvel's CBD has all the answers for Captain America or Spider-Man. I really do believe that every scenario has its own set of problems, and it depends on the modular that you're going to put in. How we tackle the problem and how we deck build for solo player or for multiplayer will have a huge impact. Because let's say let's say I'm playing Black Widow, who has a lot of preparation cards and everything. So when I'm looking at her, I'm like, okay, so what can I do me as Black Widow? Okay, I do a lot of threat removal. I have that really awesome Covert Ops, which is a confuse event that removes 4 threat. Okay, so those are my strengths. Okay, so how can I play this? Okay, and I'm playing with Thor. Okay, so what can I give Thor while I'm going to be playing as Black Widow to help him out in his game? And when I start thinking about that in the deck building process, when I'm looking at a multiplayer game, it really opens up a lot of avenues into, hey, if I give you this, is that going to be useful? If I give you that downtime, you don't need to play that in your deck, and it's going to remove cards from my deck. So I think that's a good synergy. And then they can focus on what they do well, and then I can focus on thinning out my deck and really get my more powerful cards more often. And I think that's the core of how I do approach a scenario, solo versus multiplayer.
Yeah, and so I guess maybe to elaborate a little bit on that, when people come to like a playtime game or like a multiplayer game, do you guys all deck build together before you start, or like are you handing out decks, or do they bring their own deck? Like how much prep is going in before game time, or do you kind of have a game, talk about the deck building, and then do a bit of changes and then play again? Like, is there a process there that you guys have been involved with?
Well, it's not really a process. It's basically we're like, hey guys, I want to get a game together. Hey, okay, so who are we facing? Okay, well, let's say, Claw tonight. Oh, okay, Claw with what? Let's say Claw and the Legions of Hydra. Okay. Oh, I have a Spider-Man deck ready. Oh, I have a Thor deck. I have a She-Hulk deck. And then people kind of bring their decks, and before the game starts, depending on who took what aspect, I'm like, oh, hey, did you think about including let's say a combat training for myself? Oh yeah, I'm playing Justice. I saw that you were going to play Captain America. I definitely put in a heroic intuition for you to really help with your thwarting when we need it. Oh, okay, and then we kind of do a little bit of deck adjustments once everyone has their characters, and like, oh yeah, I planned for that. It's very minimal, but it is people kind of build their decks. I'm like, I want to try this deck out. I'm like, okay, cool. Like, yeah, let's see how that works. And then we kind of do little adjustments from there. I'm like, oh, did you think about including this for me? Oh yeah, I put one in. I got you covered. And that's pretty much how we go about it.
Yeah, and I think you also raised a pretty good point about how, at least so far, the DB can often feel a bit focused towards like addressing the 10 scenarios that we have. And it's a bit different because I don't know if you've played Lord of the Rings or Arkham Horror, but often people would be a bit more specific about deck building for an encounter rather than like a generic all-for-one deck. There is, however, an infamous Lord of the Rings deck that is called the One Deck, which has defeated every single scenario that game ever put out, which is quite a feat. But I feel like Marvel Champions has a little bit of room to grow there, where there probably should be a bit more of a conversation about what are you bringing to deal with Ultron over, someone like Absorbing Man or Crossbones, because there might be some different decisions there, as you've said. And it's exciting to see that you've got a process. Is that something that you kind of share on your YouTube channel as well?
Yeah, I've started doing that. I wasn't doing it before when I started. I think I used to just pull out the deck and just be like, okay, I'm using this, and this. And then people would kind of just follow me through the video and kind of see how I use the cards. What I'm starting to do now is like, okay, so going in to this challenge, and just to go back on a little side note, I did put out a video today where it was a Spider-Woman Justice Protection build versus Expert Ultron. And I went into the scenario and I was like, okay, these are the cards I have to worry about in the Ultron scenario. These are going to be really bad for me. And then these ones are not as worrisome. So I can let these things resolve because I can put, if I do get Black Widow into play, these I can let slide, or these, if I see this, I really want to remove that. And then what I did after that is I'm like, okay, these are the cards I'm using and why I'm using this. So really go a little bit more into the deck strategy beforehand. And I did that with a couple of, another challenge for Kennedy Hawk, which I know you know, which was Hulk leadership and She-Hulk aggression versus the Weapons Master Claw, which on Expert, and that was a nightmare. That took me like five tries. But it was fun though, because I knew my strategy was good. I knew I had the cards, and then on my third game, I thought I had the win, but I forgot to reveal a minion when the scheme flipped. So I like, all right, whatever. I'll leave it there because you can kind of see the strategy. And in the fifth pass, I tweaked a couple of cards that I removed, and then I just like, okay, this is solid. I'm just going to go with this. And then and it came out flawless. And that's and you saw the strategy. You saw where Hulk was going. You saw like where She-Hulk was doing and how she was doing it, and really how to respond to all these the ever-changing scenario that's being put out in multiplayer. So it was fun.
Yeah, and like, you know, we now got a very large range of scenarios to choose from, with the modular combinations kind of getting a bit out of hand. I think it's kind of almost unreally reasonable that you can play every hero into every scenario combination with every aspect. It's kind of expanding a bit too fast now. But I guess the great thing is that there is like some underpinning things that you can do in deck building to try and address these things. And so I thought, it'd be great to have you on and we could do a bit more deep dive on the deck building side. Before we get there, though, I thought I'd just quickly ask, so like, what's your background with card games in general, and sort of how did you actually get into Marvel Champions before starting your YouTube channel?
Well, it all goes back to Magic the Gathering. So I remember starting Magic the Gathering in high school. I think right at the time where Fallen Empires was the first set I think I bought. And oh man, that was such a bad set too. But it got me interested enough in the game to want to continue and really like that gaming aspect. That was the first card game I got into. Because before that, it was basically Heroes of Might and Magic 2 playing on repeat and on hot seat with some of my buddies till like 6 a.m. It was insane. That was high school, baby. But then I think jump forward about 10 years of backpacking and traveling across Central and South America, working on cruise ships, working in the resorts in Cancun, Dominican Republic. Get back to Canada about 10 years later, starting working at a kids camp. And then, oh, look, some kids were playing Magic. I'm like, all right, let's get back into it. And then from there, evolved from Magic to Commander. And then I discovered, I'm trying to remember. Oh, I think the first deck building game I got into was the DC deck builder. And I thought that was just fantastic. Okay, so you start with the original cards and then you build up. And then I was great. I was like, wow, that's so cool. And then I get to see Marvel Legendary. Oh man, I'm not a big DC fan per se. I like a few characters in DC, but most of them I'm like, eh. And then I saw Marvel Legendary and I was like, oh my God, I'm hooked. I was like, DC? Wow, that's too easy. That's so simple. But now, we can play together and we can evolve and we have to beat the scenario together. So that really got me into the place where I am, where I prefer cooperative rather than competitive. I like working together to solve the problem. Legendary answered that need. and still have the little the competition aspect, which who is the most legendary player with the most victory points at the end. So I got all of the expansions and all of that, and then I saw these guys playing Marvel Champions on YouTube. I think I saw was it Dale, the casual gamer, and then I saw what's his name again? I always call him Red, but it's not that. It's Jackalope Games, and it's he's got his own YouTube channel. And I started watching all these other guys playing Marvel Champions, and I'm like, oh my god, this game looks fun. And so I asked my wife, hey, my birthday's coming up. There you go. I would really like this game. Was it my birthday or was it Christmas? I forget which one it was. I think it was Christmas. Yeah, because it came out in December. Yeah, so my wife got it for me. I played my first game and I was hooked. I sold my legendary game. I got rid of that. I was like, oh man, this is the game. And I'm like, this was my first test, my first real living card game where I got to really feel like, oh my God, I am Spider-Man. I'm like, man, this feels so good and so real. And it really rose to the first spot where I'm just constantly playing this. I'm like forgetting almost every other game except for Clank. Man, Clank, I love Clank. That is, I think, Clank is my close second to Marvel Champions, and that's where I evolved from. So that's my parkour in a nutshell.
It's funny you say Clank. I before the pandemic hit, I was actually in the middle of a Clank Acquisitions game series, and I was really eager to get back to it, but we probably won't be able to play it until later this year. But it's good to know there are other Clank lovers out there. It's such a great game.
Oh, it is. My sister, who lives in Perth with her hubby, who's a military guy. His name's Ben. He's a big Aussie, like 6'5", just massive. Like board games for him, like what are you talking about? Beer pong's a board game. But I introduced Clank to them like on a whim. I'm like, and then all of a sudden, my brother-in-law Ben's like, Steve, you want a Clank, mate? You want a Clank? And it became a verb. And seriously, our whole Australian vacation became a Clank game. And it was so amazing. It was just like, I got these guys to clanking. It was just clanking. It was clanking in the day. All right, do you think we can get a game of clanking? And we weren't in Australia. I messed up. They came here. So they visited us because I'm like, why would I bring my game of Clank in Australia? No, they came here, and what they did is they ended up buying that game after and bringing it back to Australia. And when Legacy came out, the Clank Legacy came out, I had started a campaign with some friends, and my sister and my brother-in-law came back to visit, and I actually started a new campaign with them, and I bought a new game just for them as a little thank you gift to bring them back. So Clank Legacy, man, it's so awesome.
Yeah. It's great to hear sort of like your path into Champions, because I think the living card game scene really does give potential to the things you've been talking about with, like deck building and the difference between solo and multiplayer. So like I thought like a good part would be just talking about, I guess, first solo play. You talked about how you have a scenario focus, but I was wondering when you start deck building, do you look at the hero set first or some aspect card that you want to build around, or what's your general approach when playing solo recently?
Well, most of the time, like I said, when I see characters like Hulk or She-Hulk or Thor, when they were getting such a bad rep, I want to show. I think I just want to prove to people, stop complaining, look at the cards, and try to think how you can make this guy great. And when you look at the cards, I'm like, so let's just take the Hulk pack. And if I look at Hulk, I have the two amazing 3-cost resources. And then I only have Banner's Laboratory, my Immovable Object, and the Boundless Rage as permanent cards that you want to put on the table. And everything else is an event. So you have the Orbital Leaps that remove 3 to 5 threat. You have the things that get you ready. So what do I need to add. So I'm like looking at this. These are all events. So when I'm building a Hulk deck, I don't want to put more events than I need to in the deck because his signature events are going to be way better than anything I can put out. So if I'm looking at any aspect, whether it be justice or leadership or aggression or protection, I'm looking at what stays on the table. What do I enter into this deck that is going to help me in my scenario that is also going to stay on the table as I build. So that is how I see it, because every card on the table is a card less in my deck, which gives me a better chance of seeing my big Hulk cards or my big signature cards for any character. That's what I need. That's what I look at. And just in comparison, if you look at Black Widow or Iron Man, where almost 80% of his deck are cards that are staying on the table, then for him, I want to put in a little bit more events and in contrast to everything stays on the table, because I do want to place most of my cards. And okay, so now I need things that stun. I can use things that tackle. Every card that I look at, I'm like, okay, how is that going to help me in the long run? And I don't even really care about costs too much. And I just look at what can it do? Is it going to be the right card for the right time? And then after that, the question is, how many should I put? So if I look at let's say an example, let's say I'm playing Justice, how many side schemes in his deck? Is it worth putting a skilled investigator? Is it worth it to put the followeds? So these are all questions I ask myself before I deck build. So if that answers your question.
Yeah, so I mean, you raised the concept of deck thinning, and different people seem to fall into different camps on it. So would you say that for yourself that you seem to value a little bit about what the permanent board state can offer between scenarios, and sort of getting that smaller deck to see the stronger signature cards is something that you feel is a common play pattern at the moment? Is that fair to say?
I would tend to agree on that. It's like I said, you can always lose at any moment, which is fun, which is what makes the game interesting. But using the right cards at the right time and having the right card on the board, I'll give you an example. Energy barriers is a great example. It's on the table. I can take some damage. Energy barrier it's there. It's only got 3 counters on it. I don't rush to get rid of it just to prevent 1 damage, just for the sake of preventing 1 damage. Unless I absolutely need it, I'm going to keep it there for when it is the most opportune time. And I think a lot of people kind of miss that point. The same thing for allies. Allies are like, I treat allies like a second player. So if I'm playing solo, if I have an ally, it's basically we're 2-on-1 on the villain. Because he's doing, if you look at the stats of most of the allies, they're very close to what the typical heroes have, and even some of them are even better. So, if you want to just block with your ally for no reason, I'm like, why? You can still take the hit. I'm more of a let's go through this scenario. Let's kind of build our way through and be strategic, rather than just churn and burn and then, all right, just go in for the kill. Like, I enjoy the game so much that I want it to last a little bit longer. I'm not looking for the quick win, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, that's quite insightful into sort of how you perceive it. Do you have a preference for what hero you bring to certain scenarios, or do you tend just to focus on, like, I would feel like playing Hawkeye today, or I want to play Hulk, and then go from there as to how you approach the deck building? Like what comes first, the deck idea or the hero that you want to play?
Well, I'm a big fan of randomness, so a lot of times what we'll do is, especially if we're playing multiplayer, I'll just go random, roll of the dice. Okay, I'm going to be playing She-Hulk today, or I'll roll and okay, so it's Hawkeye or it's Spider-Man, and then from there I'll just roll on an aspect and then be done with it. I even did a video which was somebody challenged me. It was one of the first challenges I got, and it's from a guy from I think he's from Vegas. I know he's from the West Coast. Daniel Lee, I think his name is. and he challenged me to do an Iron Man build with all random cards. So I kind of built the Commander Champions deck where it was basically one card of each on the table, and then I rolled the dice on every card. Okay, so I'm picking the 15th card, I'm picking the 12th card, I'm picking this card, one card from this row, one card from this row. And I just built a deck with, I think it was 15 aspect cards and 10 neutral cards, and voila. And that was it. I only got 10 of these, and I'll have to make it. And I only have one copy of each. So I ended up having one double resource. I ended up having like all these weird cards, but I still was able to beat the game because it's not solely on the deck that you have, but it's how you approach each problem that arises and how you choose to tackle it. Do I choose to ignore it, or do I choose to focus on what I can do? Okay, so maybe I can't remove this, but this is going to further my cause if I get rid of this guard. I'm going to further my cause, maybe not right now because I have this side scheme to do, but if I focus on this, I'll be able to do this after, and just kind of roll with the punches until you can stabilize. And I think that's one of the crucial elements, is finding that sweet spot where you stabilize. And once you have once you've stabilized your board state and what the villains encounter, the villains board looks like, then you're winning. It doesn't matter. Like once you've reached that plateau where you're like, oh man, he's got no side schemes in play, he's got no minions, I'm still at full strength, and I got a board, I'm winning.
Yeah, I guess that's a good way of putting it, of the stabilization point that often decks can find. Do you think with the game being designed in a way where there's the pre-constructed decks and the standard scenarios, like what's your thoughts on like that experience? Like, do you play much with the pre-con experience into standard villains? And if so, like, do you think, like you said, that the themes of sequencing and game plan strategy kind of showcase a bit more there, where you get to see what the designer intended for the deck, but then also be rewarded by good sequencing?
Yeah, so in my YouTube channel, everything has been divided by playlists. So let's say you're searching for something, you can look for a topic, either a scenario, a hero specific, a challenge specific. You can look at something like for just standard, expert, or heroic play. There's a list for that, and in that list, there is something I call the new player corner, where I take the precon decks and I challenge myself to use the precon on an expert level villain. Sometimes it's Claw. I like Claw a lot because Claw has the most versatility. He has schemes, he has ways to heal, he has ways to really mess your day. So I really like Expert Claw because he starts with 2 side schemes and just finding that sweet spot. What can I do with this core deck? With just the core pack, what can I do with my hero, with what is available, with the resources that are available? And so far, I've been able to complete an expert level gameplay, not always on my first try, but most of them on the first or second try, with the base hero packs. Even Hulk, who's the other one that people have? Thor, even She-Hulk. And I think out of all of my favorite hero packs, I think it was Miss Marvel, where I went up against Rhino and MODOK. And I'm just using the base cards here for Miss Marvel, and then got Doomsday Chair turn 1, and then Shadow of the Past turn 2, and was still able, with a hero like Miss Marvel, who flips back and forth into alter ego hero, to stabilize and get the win. So again, there's a lot of what's called out there as like power creep or everything. It's, yes, some heroes are a little bit easier to navigate, and I'll get into that a little bit later if you want to talk, let's say, Doctor Strange or some of the other characters that are, most people say, that are like overpowered. But Miss Marvel, a lot of people don't like her. She's got 1/1/1, but for me, I think she's one of the best characters of this game. because what she can do, just because of what she can do. And it's amazing. And even with the base deck, and I invite people to go check out that game because that was insane. I was like, most people are like, do you just give up when you get Shadows of the Past on your first turn? Like, no, don't give up. There's always a way. It might present itself, it might not, but see the game through and see where the cards lead you.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring up Miss Marvel because when Michael was on here, he was talking about how that deck is something he's very familiar with, and it's one of his favorite experiences to utilize that precon. And I probably share the same sentiment. I think Miss Marvel's probably my favorite hero in the game by a rather large extent. And yeah, it's great to hear that even with Doomsday Chair and Rhino, you can still eke out the wins with the precon. The only downside to that deck, unfortunately, is that the defense ruling kind of made Preemptive Strike a bit less impactful. But otherwise, I think it's so interesting to me that each hero brings like their unique play experience, and they do things so differently that I think sometimes maybe people don't like them because they're not your standard just tap and do something, for 2 or 3. You actually Miss Marvel's much more event focused, and while you do manage to build a tableau like you've described previously, a lot of the time you actually want to build more events into her kit to get more value out of the embiggens and shrinks. And as a consequence of that, it's not as common of a play pattern as you'd see maybe with other heroes. But yeah, I definitely share the sentiment you have that she's a lot of fun.
Yeah, if you have a chance, I actually did a kind of a story signature game with her where it was was for heroic play. This was deck building to the max, and it's Miss Marvel's heroic journey into becoming an Avenger, and where I started with her against the Wrecking Crew on heroic. Just not super heroic, super expert heroic there, just expert heroic. And I used protection, and I started the story while she's on. I kind of even wrote a little story. She's just walking down the street, and then this bank robbery happens, or I forget what the scenario is for the Wrecking Crew, but and then it just kind of happens, and she's by herself. So aside from Red Dagger, who's the only signature ally, I played protection with no allies. Like normally you'd include, Nova or Luke Cage, and I just went, no allies for that. And then I played my second game against Norman Osborn, the Schemer, on heroic as well, and I think I went Justice for that, and it was super fun. Like how she's facing the Norman Osborn, trying to foil his plans using the Justice cards, and just kind of building through that. And then after that, the Green Goblin, which is mutagen formula, wants his revenge, places a bomb, pisses her off. She goes in with aggression against heroic Green Goblin, and that was an insane game as well. And then I think I've not finished because I don't think I can make her work. I haven't played it in a while. I think I just gave up at one point. I was trying to do either Heroic Claw with leadership. So just so news coverage, we got, Miss Marvel against Ulysses Claw. It's her first outing with the Avengers, but there is no event cards that you can recycle in the leadership aspect. So I was just like, do I play allies? Do I do this? Am I exhausted? And it's been my challenge. So I definitely have to get a heroic victory with leadership to just kind of complete that final chapter with Miss Marvel. And because I love that character so much, man. She's so good. She's so fun.
Yeah, I think with Hawkeye's cards, you can probably do it now with sort of like maybe a Goliath build around out of her. But you don't get the attack synergy as much, which is a shame. You raised another point about solo play, which was just in general, I guess, being able to focus on like selecting a difficulty. And I was wondering what your experience was between standard, expert, I think it's rookie, and heroic. Like how have you found the different sort of difficulties for yourself? And you mentioned that, like, for instance, your nephew wanted like a real big challenge. Like, is there like, do you have some younger sort of, either family members or audience that like where do they engage with on the difficulty front?
So for me, like Rookie is a great introduction to the game. My son's 5 years old, and so I did my first game with my 5-year-old, and he wanted to be Captain America because he has his Captain America shield and he was ready. So we played a Rookie game where I explained to him, all right, Dean, you have to use these cards. It didn't last very long, but it was perfect. We went in, there's like only 28 health, and I played Spider-Man. So, okay, Spider-Man and Captain America are together, and I made it as a little bit of a story. So he just fell in love. And but then his little brother Luke came in and kind of started bending the cards, and like, okay, nope, we got to stop this. But for like Rookie play, for like young kids that are 7-8 years old, that it's a great way to have them read and just kind of practicing all this kind of stuff is very good. And for all the new players, just the standard, which is the standard play, it does offer a very good challenge. The only difference between standard play and expert play is you start on a higher difficulty and you add 3 cards to the deck. So even on standard play, it still offers a challenge, and standard play will help you kind of hone in on the decision making, because what's going to happen in standard play, you're going to be like, okay, I can just punch the villain. He didn't really get a side scheme. Okay, so we can just keep focusing on punching. Oh man, okay. It makes you feel good. And like, okay, bang, okay. Ooh, a side scheme happened. We can just ignore it. Let's just keep punching. But once you start playing on the expert, you're like, oh, okay, if I do ignore this, and you'll fail. Like the first couple of times you'll play expert, you'll fail because you're such in a mindset that, okay, I can just punch the villain. He punches me back. I can punch him. And it's kind of like a little back and forth. And you kind of ignore everything else. And then you're like, oh, wait, there's more to this game. It's not just a punch fest. There's actual substance. There's actually a story evolving as I'm dueling with this villain. And that's what I love about the game. Is like, oh, okay, something came up. We're busy fighting. And then, oh man, okay, so now there's a new bank robbery, or the vulture comes in. I'm like, oh man, okay, whoa. Okay, let's take a second. Like, what can we do against this side scheme and not lose against the main scheme at the same time? So that's what I love about this game is even on standard, even on expert, even on hero, it doesn't really matter what difficulty you play. The fact that you're playing this game and you're enjoying it, that's what matters. And you can adjust that difficulty setting with the modular sets, and so kind of make it a little bit more difficult. Add a scenario that adds a lot more a lot more minions into play, like the Masters of Evil. Ooh, okay, so when these guys come out, wow, they're pretty tough. I only have an attack of 2, and most of these guys have like 5 or 6. Okay, so maybe I have to think outside the box. I can't just use my basic attacks for these guys. I gotta. Okay, so maybe in my deck, and that's going to get you to thinking. I'm like, oh, okay. Oh, now I do have to use some of these big events that can do some real good damage. But then I don't use them just on the boss. I have to take care of these minions. So that's what I like about how the game progresses. And sometimes you'll have a walk in the park, and then sometimes it's apocalypse. And then it's the end of the world because everything is going wrong, or all the bad encounter cards are coming. So I think that's just fantastic about this game.
Yeah, I think the nice thing about the game is there's, a lot of levers you can pull to make the game either harder or easier for yourself, just depending on the sort of challenge that you want. The other thing I thought about for solo play that you've raised a few times is the idea of this concept of, I guess, what's known as stun lock or confuse lock, and using the status effects to kind of reduce the villain activation count. What are your thoughts on how stun lock or, that sort of game type is introduced into the game at the moment? Like, do you feel like it's allowing solo play to be a bit too easy? Do you think it's a really interesting and viable strategy? Like, where do you sit on where it fits right now in the game?
Well, I'll just kind of do a side note, and I think one of the reasons why I think that type the status cards are so powerful, and the reason why we kind of saw a little bit of it, and then when Doctor Strange came out, he was the first character that really had access to stun, to tough, and to confuse. So this is the first character. Now Spider-Woman has access to these as well. But if you look at everyone else, Captain America could just stun. He doesn't get tough. Spider-Man can, tangled web, and then he can stun for 2 turns. She-Hulk can stun. Who can confuse? Captain Marvel has Spider-Woman who comes in and confuses. But if you look at the cards, the status cards weren't really explored, except if you're playing Justice, you can confuse. If you're playing Protection, you can stun. And I think before Hulk cards came out, like the Dropkick, I think the Dropkick is the only one that introduced that for the stunning in aggression. So having these new cards that play off of that is just fantastic, because the less activations the villain has, the less chances he has of defeating you. So if he's not attacking, he's not scheming, you're kind of safe. That's just half of his resources that are getting exploited. So that is just, for me, it's a mechanic, and it doesn't make it easier. It doesn't make it harder. It just prevents one thing. And what I've noticed by playing a lot of solo play is sometimes that boost card that the villain gets when he attacks you, holy smokes, it's a shadow of the past. Or holy smokes, it's that one card that could have killed you. And if you had stunned him, and then he reveals that instead of that as a boost, and it just wrecks your day, how many times, I'm sure if you play a lot, how many times did you stun the villain or confuse the villain, and then your encounter card is, shadow of the past? Oh, come on. And then you're just like, okay, so now I have to deal with this. So I think stunning and confusing is a great mechanic, because it does slow down the villain, and it's a part of the game. I'm sure, and look what they're doing right now. They're introducing villains that can't be stunned. I kind of wish Hulk wasn't be able to be stunned, but like, look at Ronin, the printable modular. He can't be stunned. He starts with tough. Look at the sleeper in the Rise of the Red Skull. He's got guard, tough, and retaliate. I'm like, wow, this guy's a beast. So whatever the hero get access to, the villain gets access to as well. So that's one of the things that I like about the Weapons Master modular set. Is I actually started adding the Weapons Master to almost every deck now, because it gives the opportunity to the villain to gain piercing, to gain range, and that, like, if you're Captain America and the villain has range, well, that your retaliates don't work anymore. So that makes perfect sense. If you're Doctor Strange and you're pulling tough status cards, and then the villain has piercing and overkill, like, just think about Rhino with piercing and charge. That can still wreck your day. So giving the villain the tools to be able to defeat you is also something I think about when I deck build. So if I'm playing a leadership deck, which a lot of people say, leadership is too strong. Well, play leadership with the under attack. When you get those, because that concussion blow, concussion blast, that deals 1 damage to every character, even if it's a boost card, it can just wipe out 4 or 5 allies in 1 turn, and you're just like, oh wow, I didn't see that one coming. And that's why I'm like, if you give the villain the tools to defeat you, you're going to see that your game is going to evolve, because you got to try to play around that. So if I'm playing Black Widow, what's one of the things that messes me up? If I'm confused. So I don't think the bomb scare is the least challenging, because a lot of people are like, whatever, thwarting. No, thwarting's important, especially to a character like Black Widow, where she can actually remove threat and alter ego. That's important. So if I give the villain the tools to succeed or the best tools possible to really mess my day, it makes my game more fun.
Yeah, I mean I think that's a really good point. I know we trying to skirt around the Doctor Strange issue, but the few times that I've played Doctor Strange, I tried Under Attack as the module, and it definitely made it a lot trickier to get value from Rings of Ragabond or whatever it's called, and the addition of the Weapon Master definitely makes that even more intriguing with the piercing. I wish the 2 weapons had Surge. It's probably my only dream from that modular set, but yeah, I think that's a great point about you can give the villain the tools to make your game fun, because there is a lot of people that seem to sometimes vocalize that the game's a bit too easy, but I think it's like you said, it's just it's similar to player cards in that sometimes the card's just not printed yet, or sometimes you just haven't given the right tools to the scenario to kind of get the tension level exactly where you want it to be.
Oh, I definitely agree on that. Again, it's like everything else. You know, you can build for success, or you can build to make it tough, or you can build it so it's just a cakewalk. And there's no right or wrong way to play, and there's no right or wrong way to build. And that's why when I see that in the community people arguing about, oh, this is so good and this is garbage and this is, guys, what's intended to be that character? This is what the designers had intended for this character. So explore that, go with it, have fun with it, and see where it leads you. And then just like embrace the character. This is what your character does, and go with it. And then see where that leads you in the scenario, and see where that leads you against any villain. And then, okay, well, I want to be super thematic. I want to make sure that, and which is fun about this game. It's co-op. It's friendly. There's no tournaments. There's no mentality of, oh, I have to win. There's no I need to win mentality. There's I want to have a good time mentality. And that's what I think we should really, really focus on when you're playing Marvel Champions. Are you here to have a good time? Are you here to have a good time with some friends? Marvel Champions playtime. And so, yeah. So that's all it is in a nutshell. It's so fun.
Yeah, it's certainly what my playgroup aims towards is they all had competitive card game backgrounds, and they've now fully embraced that we gather together to have fun and not beat each other up. So it's a good fun for everyone involved.
All right, I definitely agree, and that's what's good because and I'm just going to jump back to playtime here. When you're playing with other people that are passionate about the game, it just makes such a difference because your game is just like they're involved, and I like animating my games as well. It's like I'm not just playing my cards. Okay, Miss Marvel. Okay, I'm gonna do this. Okay, I'm gonna do my embiggen, and I'm gonna shrink, or I'm gonna do my big hands. I go all out. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna play big hands and big hand and punch. And then when I play Hulk, I'm like, Hulk smash. And then and just go with all the things. Like, how about with Thor? I love playing Thor because I get to use this accent. It's so fun. I'm like, and I really try to bring the characters to life. And then it's funny because when I'm playing Black Widow, people are like, Steve, you're so quiet. But that's Black Widow. If I'm playing Spider-Man, I'm going to be snarky. I'll have all these little remarks all the time. And I try to kind of embrace the character as I'm playing it, and I think I try to convey that in my videos as I'm playing, as I'm talking, and that's why sometimes I make a little bit of mistakes because I'm just doing stuff off the top of my head, and like sometimes I get distracted by my own entertainment. So,
yeah, the passion definitely comes through in the videos. So yeah, just keep doing what you're doing there. The last thing I think I wanted to touch on with solo play was just to gather your thoughts on. Who's your favorite hero to play currently, and which aspects is your favorite? And maybe lastly, what's your favorite card to play? Like, what's your favorite card to include in a deck at the moment?
Well, that's tough. I keep saying Miss Marvel is my favorite. I think for some, I don't know why. I enjoy all of them, but if somebody says, "Hey, Steve, if you only had one hero to pick, I think it would always be Miss Marvel. And everything but leadership. I think she's amazing in everything. And what is my favorite card to play? Oh man, there's so many. There's so many really good cards. In thematic. Oh, let me see. You know what? Let me. I'm going to take a quick look here at the aggression cards and see if one really stands out right over. You know what? I really like Get Over here. I think if I'm going to choose one in aggression, I think it's going to be Get Over Here. I keep thinking of a Scorpion in Mortal Kombat, and then I see Thor and just like, how that be? And then I think Get Over Here is probably one of my favorite cards in aggression, just because it removes a stun status card for 0. I think super good because it is an attack event for 0. I'm like, it's a 0 cost stun lock, and I mentioned that a lot in my character spotlights. If I'm looking at protection, I really like Iron Fist in protection. I think he's probably my favorite new card in protection. I think before that would have probably be Get Behind Me. Yeah, so Iron Fist and Get Behind Me in protection. And if I'm looking at Justice, I think Foiled. I think Foiled is just super thematic. I think Foiled is my favorite Justice card, even though I don't play it unless I'm playing like characters like Iron Man Justice or Black Widow Justice. If I'm not playing these characters, I'm not running Foiled normally. But it is one of my favorite cards to play. It's just like, go ahead and scheme for almost nothing. And then leadership is kind of tough. I think leadership. I think teamwork is one of my favorite cards. I think by far teamwork is one of my favorite because there's nothing more cool than punching with Miss Marvel for like 7 or 8 on a basic attack because you've pumped up Vision like to the extreme, and then just play her and just make it awesome. Yeah, I think that's my favorite card in each aspect. And if we're gonna go neutral, oh man, I'm not gonna say that enough. Lockjaw, baby, all the way. Lockjaw is my favorite neutral card for solo play.
You'll make Banana Crapshoot from the side scheme very happy with that one. He loves that card as well. That's a good pick, I think.
Yeah, I think those are my top cards. Yeah. There's so much bad noise on Lockjaw, but when you're playing heroes like Hulk or She-Hulk or even Thor that don't, any hero that has a 1 thwart should run a Lockjaw, because there will be times where you have, oh man, I have nothing I can do. Oh wait, he's in my bin. I want to play Lockjaw. So he's just awesome.
Yeah, and so I guess we'll just cover a little bit from the multiplayer side as well. So you've talked a little bit about how your solo experience is and how you deck build there. What sort of things are you considering when playing multiplayer? Is there any particular card in each aspect that you feel is kind of shaping your experience, or are there cards that you would typically run in solo play that get altered either in count or if they're removed from the deck? What's been your experience with the playtime sort of, guys?
So when I'm playing in playtime, I'm very spur of the moment. I'll build my deck probably in about 2 minutes before a game. Not too much forethought, just kind of going like, okay, guys, this is a scenario. If I'm playing protection, I'm going to focus only on protection. So everything I'm going to do is I've noticed this when I do play like a specific aspect. I'll try to go all in on the aspect, almost running like 20, sometimes even 22 cards of the aspect, just to get really as much value as possible. If I'm the protection guy, I'm going to be healing you. I'm going to keep you guys in alter ego. I'm going to do some damage when I can, but don't count on me for damage. Count on me on keeping you guys alive. And then if I'm doing justice, I'm going in all in on thwart. If I'm leadership, I'm going in all allies. Aggression, I'm going for damage. And I think it's a kind of smart way to do it. I think the only times where you want to be careful on that is if you're playing a 4-player game. If you only have one justice player, once those side schemes come in, you kind of want to be able to have another player be able to remove threat. So you want to always keep that in mind, because the side schemes in multiplayer are what's going to kill you because they're so strong. Because and solo, there's like 2 threat, whatever, 3 threat, whatever. Once you start getting 8, 9 threat on the side scheme, or 10 threat, or 12 threat, even if you're the Justice guy, 12 threat on your own, it's not always a cakewalk. So I think that is my mentality going in. I wouldn't say there's any cards I like to play per se, but I do like to help my allies. So if I have cards that I can play on my allies that are going to push my agenda, which is either protection or justice or aggression, I will play this on my other teammates to make them better at what I'm supposed to do as well. So it kind of evens out the playing field.
Yeah, and what do you think about cards like Avengers Mansion and Helicarriers? Is like I see a lot of solo players sometimes cut those cards because sometimes the cost curve can be a bit too high. But in multiplayer, like for me personally, I feel like if everyone's running those cards, you can kind of get an engine going where you play one, you help someone else put theirs down, and it kind of just helps you accelerate your resource ramp as a group. What's been your experience with that?
You know what? I don't really play a lot of Avengers Mansions. I'll be honest. I play Avengers Mansions, I think, with 3 characters right now, or maybe 4. I'll tend to play an Avengers Mansion with Iron Man, Captain Marvel, Doctor Strange. Oh, maybe more. There's more than that. Black Panther, because he has all the resources. Probably Hulk as well. And yeah, I think that's about it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, about these guys. Maybe Black Widow, if depending on what I'm going, and Thor. Yeah, I do think they have the potential, especially in multiplayer. You're right. Being able to give people extra cards and stuff like that. The Helicarrier, they're great. So yeah, it should be almost an auto include, and then always the debate like who's running the Queen Carrier, because that's the selfish one. You know, you can only run, except the Miss Marvel guy. He doesn't get the Queen Carrier, but yeah. No, those cards are great. They're very good, and they're very helpful. And being able to just kind of play something and help the others in their game, it's going to make your experience so much better. And one thing I did notice though, and when we're playing, and that's even when I was playing live games, people tend to forget to call for actions. Don't forget to call for actions. Hey, what can you do? Oh, can you get rid of this guard so I don't waste my attack? I'm like, oh yeah, I could do that. And then, if you give me that resource, and I think the discussion as the turns progress, I think that's the first turn is pretty much everyone for themselves. But as of turn 2, once there's a Helicarrier or once there's an Avengers Mansion on the table, let's start talking. Let's start talking more. Let's be a little bit more open. Like, oh guys, I have my turn. It's ready to go. I'm clean. I don't need anything. I'm going to be able to do this. Cool. What are you going to do? One thing I did notice sometimes, and especially when we're playing, be prepared. Start thinking about your turn before it's your turn. I know you want to still pay attention to what the other people are doing, but when you look at your hand and you have your new cards, start thinking about, okay, I can take care of this. Is anybody else going to take care of that? No, then I'll focus on that. Perfect. Oh, I can only punch for 2, but I'm going to be playing my my Mansion, and I'll have an Avengers Mansion for someone. And then that kind of discussion is what is going to make this game experience it's so much better for you guys when you're playing, because the discussion, the interaction, the socialization aspect, it's just bringing us together, and then we're working together, and it actually feels like you're working together to solve the problem. And I think that's the big takeaway from multiplayer is like work together.
Yeah, something I guess also that's been fun with that is that each aspect kind of got their own card draw card. So like Hall of Heroes means that the aggression player is like needing to tell other players like, hey, I've got the minions, don't worry about it. And like Unflappable is like, I'll block and I'm going to draw a card, and you can even give that to someone else. And then Skilled Investigator kind of made it so like you kind of need to line up the 3 players flipping to hero form to try and all draw a card at the same time from like a Spider-Man play, for instance. So I'm really liking that they're introducing alternatives that kind of reinforce what you're saying there of like good communication and kind of working together to try and have some really memorable team moments. Because I think that's what multiplayer can do that solo can't, where someone plays like Avengers Assemble for the whole table. Like that's quite a memorable moment in your game experience for that game. So I think you nailed it on the head.
I just want to give, again, a big shout out to Caleb Grace, even Michael Boggs, but especially Caleb Grace, who actually took the time and to come into one of our playtime games. I posted a tribute game to Chadwick Boseman and on Marvel Champions Playtime, and say who would like to join me. Let's play 4 times, 4 Black Panther decks, 1 for each aspect, and just let's have a game using that. And it was super fun. And in the middle of it, I had messaged Caleb Grace. I'm like, hey Caleb, would you like to join us on our game? I actually recorded the when he came in. I said, hey, do you mind if I record a little bit of this? And I recorded about 10, 15 minutes of it. And we just talked. And it was all new time players for Marvel Champions Playtime. There was all their first game. And all the people I play with normally that are like, we play like 2 or 3 times. They're always on. They're always willing to play. That guy, Caleb is he seems like such a passionate guy. He loves his game. And he really appreciates the community. Man, I just can't give enough of a big shout. And that made my day. It made everyone's day at the table. And I think I posted a little something about it in the community group after. And I think we had like 20 people join Playtime. So we went from like being like 10 people to we're close to 100 players from around the world right now joining in this community. And what I encourage people, if you're listening to this, you can start your own kind of sub Playtime group. You just like Marvel Champions, West Coast, or Marvel Champions Playtime, Eastern Europe time, or Australia time. I forget the name of all the time zones, but whatever. But you get the gist of it, and just be like, yeah, let's start organizing distance play. And if it becomes a thing, COVID is still a big nightmare out there. Hopefully it gets better. But in the meantime, this is a way to bring this community close together, interact with new people, make new friends. I know I've made personally at least 5 or 6 new friends that I would be like, yeah, I'm going to go have a beer with this guy if ever COVID ends. I'm like, yeah, this is awesome. And it evolved from just playing together to, oh man, we actually call each other just to say hi and what's up and how's it going. So it's really, really a fun dynamic. And I think everyone that's on Playtime really enjoys it. And I actually invite the people that do experience a game on Marvel Champions Playtime to write about their experience and how it was and how the game went, and just share this with the community to get more people involved, more people that are solo players that are struggling to like, oh man, I don't understand why I can't beat the game. I don't understand why I can't do it. And come play with us. And one of the things is that, I'm a newbie. Dude, it doesn't matter if you're new. We'll play together. We'll learn off each other. If we see something that, because one of the people was playing Doctor Strange, and I kind of noticed because we see everyone's screens, and he discarded the Sorcerer Supreme card to play an event card. I'm like, can I make a suggestion? And just approaching it like that, like you're free to do whatever you want, but Doctor Strange, like that card is probably one of your best cards. It gives you a +1 hand size for the rest of the game. So the 5 damage you're doing is great, but if you do that, just think about all the other opportunities that you're going to have to get that extra card. And that 5 damage is going to be worth it in the end to wait on that and kind of just build up. And then he's like, oh yeah, man, I didn't even think about that. I was just going for damage. And sometimes having other people's perspective is very good because it makes you grow. It's going to make you like the game even more. It's going to it's going to open your eyes to a different way of thinking, a different way of playing that, oh man, I didn't realize that man, these cards work so much better together than I thought, because I didn't see it. I had it in my head that it only worked that way. And now that I'm seeing your vision, or I'm seeing how the other possibilities of what I could do, man, it just makes everyone a better player. And that's how I started. That's how I started watching. That's why I love watching other people play, because then I'm like, oh, cool. You know what? I didn't think about that. That's a super good strategy. Man, I want to start exploring that. And that's why Marvel Champions is such a fantastic game. We are all different. We're all individuals that have their own, experiences and everything. And what you bring to the table is unique. And then since everyone's unique, it just makes such a variety and a culture that is fascinating.
Yeah, I think not only is like the design team's passion for the game, very palpable, and it's fantastic that you kind of had that engagement with Caleb, but also like even just the fact that you've got this passion, you show gameplay videos. I think one of the number one ways I've learned any card game I've ever played is by watching other people play, particularly people that are good at the game play. It often helped me understand better what exactly each card game is doing, because I'm usually pretty bad at like working it out for myself. I need to see other people do it, and then I can learn for myself from there. But yeah, congrats on playtime. It sounds like there's a lot of growth there, and I think that's a really positive initiative. And yeah, people can check you out on YouTube as well. Do you want to just let people know, I guess, one last time, just where they can find you? Where do you engage mainly in the community?
So I'm very engaged on the Marvel Champions LCG, and I'm also engaged on the other Marvel Champions living card game. I think they share a lot of the community, but I do kind of post my most of my videos to both sites. I try not to post everything, not to become an annoyance, but some of the cool challenges I like to post. I like to post the stuff for the new players to go and look out as a resource. Or you can just explore my channel called Beat the Game, BEAT with a big D and game, GAME. And yeah, just find me out. I think right now I'm appearing in searches. I remember in the beginning, I wasn't even appearing in my own searches. I was like writing my own name. Like, how am I not showing up when I'm writing my own name? And now as people like the videos, comment on the videos, it gets more recognition, and then like, okay, you got some subscribers. Okay, we're going to direct people to your channel. And yeah, so I'm like, I'm not doing this because one day I'm going to be rich and famous. No, man, I do this because it's fun. It's an awesome game, and I love it. And I want other people to see, like, man, this game is fantastic. Just if you give it a shot, man, you'll get addicted.
Yeah, that's a great note to end on. Well, Steve, thank you so much for your time, and it's been a pleasure to talk to you. And I'll make sure that all the links to Steve's content is in the description of the episode. So thank you so much for coming on, Steve.
Hey, thanks, Matthew, and looking forward to playing a game with you, man.